And welcome to another episode of Friday Night Knits. This is a little quickie but goodie where I wanted to do a quick pattern review. Today is Wednesday, November 26th, and it is the day before Thanksgiving. So I'm going to try to be as rapid as I can because I want to go ahead and dive deep into some sock knitting as well as working on my sister-in-law's cardigan. So today I wanted to share with you just my ideas and my feelings and my thoughts and suggestions, I should say, about the Throwover, which is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. This pattern came out in March of 2020. This is the pullover version of the throwback that was used for her Rhinebeck sweater of 2019. Now, I didn't go to Rhinebeck in 2019. I wasn't even knitting in 2019. I did not start knitting until July 2021 to be specific. And I can honestly say when I first saw this pattern, both the Throwover and the throwback version, I was like, yes, they're so beautiful. I want to knit it. But I finally worked up the courage back in January and decided just to dive in deep with it. I bought multiple versions of yarn in order to make both the throwback as well as the throwover. And this is the final iteration of it. Now, with the pattern in itself, it is a $9 pattern. I want to confirm that because I know that pattern costs have changed over the course of time. So let me just look this up really quick. Bada bing, bada boom. Yep, I was right. It is a $9 pattern written by Andrea Mowry. And one of the things I will say about Andrea Mowry that she frequently has discounts. So if for whatever reason that you want to buy this pattern, but it might not be in your budget, just note that she will be doing some form of a discount. She usually does it around her birthday or some type of special occasion too. So just keep an eye out for that. The best way to keep abreast of that information is by simply subscribing to her newsletter. So that's number one. Number two, that this pattern is definitely a adventurous beginner pattern. This is one of those that I have been thinking about going deeper into colorwork because I really enjoyed my experience knitting the Stitches sweater by Veronica Lindbergh. I also enjoyed knitting a cowl that had had intarsia knitting. And then I also did the frame cowl, which was a wonderful experience. Definitely using some colorwork, but not with the same intricate expectations as a sweater. And then finally, I did the ooey gooey this year. Because of my success with both my sister-in-law's ooey gooey and my ooey gooey, I really wanted to make sure I finished this one. So it was random for me to come back to it. So let me take you back for a moment. Back 4 years ago now, I had turned 40 and I fell in love with this pattern. And I was like, I think I want to cast it on, but I never did it because of a variety of different reasons. And then I asked my husband for my birthday, I wanted yarn for this pattern. I wanted for the throwback actually. So he was kind enough, bought me yarn for it. I purchased it, did not use it, ended up using it for my cousin's baby's blanket. And then I went to another yarn store and purchased another sweater quantity of yarn. And I'm looking at it right now because I didn't use it. Then I went to the yarn store again, same one, and purchased another sweater's quantity of it. And now I'm using that sweater quantity for a petite knit pattern. So long story short, it's simply to say is that I bought multiple sweater quantities of this particular yarn and never used it. And what I ended up doing is taking a yarn that I purchased for the Copenhagen. I cast on the Copenhagen using this green yarn in hopes of making this beautiful green, hunter green cardigan that I was obsessing about. I wanted a crew neck cardigan. I thought it would be a great fit. And long story short, I did not move forward with this pattern. The pattern that I was looking at called for a DK weight yarn. And the person I purchased this from, she was like, oh yeah, that yarn can work up to be DK weight. It doesn't, but it's okay. I appreciate her salesmanship. So I decided to scrap the project for the Copenhagen and save this yarn for something else. And then a few years later, literally around my 43rd, after my 43rd birthday, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to try the Throwover again. The throwback didn't work out too well. So let me try the Throwover. And I tried multiple times casting it on, didn't work out. Then fast forward to my 44th birthday, I was like, this is the year. I got to do it. I can do it. Still did not do it. So I thought it was going to work itself out. I thought it was going to get into the groove of it, but I got caught up in other projects, which is a reality of many crafters. And so in January 2025, I was like, you know what? That is it. I am going to knit the sweater. It's just something I could do. So it was one of those cold, wet, dreary days, excuse me. I sat down and I did the collar, and I was like, okay, the collar's done. Let's see what I do from there. And so then I did chart A, because this pattern has two charts. It has a chart A and a chart B. Chart A is what you see going across here, as well as right underneath the collar. So I did chart A, and I was like, okay, that worked out excellent, because chart A is really, really easy. You're just using two different colors, you're going back and forth, and it works out really well. So I was like, you know what? Let me try again. Since chart A worked out really well, let's see what happens with chart B. Maybe it's too complex. I can't do it. Chart B was so easy to read because you're only working with the yarn for 2 rows. On some occasions, you will be working with 2 colors, but never more than, actually, I'm lying. There's 2 rows where there's 3 colors that are involved, but that's it. And so it doesn't really require you to catch floats, nor does it require you to be really, how can I say this, conscientious of what it is that you're doing. As long as you are paying attention to the pattern, you can let your mind wander off into other things. So I found it to be a really great knit to do in front of the TV, as well as listening to an audiobook. I can honestly say the yoke was done in front of was done while listening to an audiobook, not in front of the TV. So after I was successful at doing the yoke, I had noticed the puckering almost immediately, and I didn't understand why, because at this particular point, I had not used a different size of yarn for a pattern. I had assumed, because I was using the right needle that the pattern calls for, and I was using the main color that was in a similar weight to what the pattern calls for, that I would be all good in the hood. I was so wrong. As you can see, there's lots of puckering. And then as I was working on it even more, I kind of like the puckering. It gave it a little texture, a little dimension, and sometimes flat sweaters can be a little flat, and I wanted it to kind of pop out. So it wasn't really bothering me too much. I actually kind of leaned into it rather leaned away from it, which is why I ended up finishing the yoke rather than stopping what I'm doing and look for a weight of yarn that was more attuned to what the pattern was calling for. So I had made a mistake. I had noticed that the yoke was rather small, and I was like, maybe this isn't quite what I'm looking for. And as I was going through the process of trying it on and looking at it, I realized that this was not the right size, and I wasn't too sure where exactly I made the mistake. And so I just made an assumption that I made a mistake in the upper yoke rather in the lower yoke, and that I needed to correct it by just cutting it in half. And I didn't want to knit the whole thing over, because, mind you, I did not come to this conclusion. I didn't really like the way the look of the pattern was doing. Even though I didn't mind the puckering, I wasn't in love with it. And so I finished the body. I had the whole body finished, as well as the ribbing done as too. And if you know, you know. And if I'm being truthful with you, I also had 3/4 of the sleeve finished. And so I was at a little conundrum. Do I just continue knitting, even though this isn't to the size I'm envisioning for myself, and it's not quite coming out the way I wanted to? Or do I stop what I'm doing and reknit the whole sweater? And initially I was going to just frog the whole sweater and start over. And then a part of me was like, no, just do some kitcheneer stitch after you increase as well. So that's the one I went with. I put it on hold until I was in a mental space to actually pick up the stitches and do this. And what is the unfortunate thing is that when I did the cutting, I did not prep the garment the way it was supposed to. Typically, and when you are going to when you're going to do surgery on a sweater, you should first pick up stitches at the top and at the bottom, and then cut in between. And for me, I should have did that. Instead, I just zipped away. It was uneven. I had cut certain sections that didn't need to be cut. It was just a hot mess. It really was. And it took forever to clean up. And then once I finally cleaned it up, I decided that this was a section that I was going to do that. So it's not as visible as it should be about where I made that surgery, but I cut it in half here, and I started off with doing the kitcheneer stitch. And then I realized I really didn't like the way the kitcheneer stitch was doing. Plus I was a little concerned about the ridge that the kitcheneer stitch was making. So I decided to switch over to the Frenchley stitch. The Frenchley, I believe it's called the Frenchley stitch. And that one was perfect. It worked out just the way it became seamless, to the point where I'm not too sure where else I had did the cutting and trying to seam together. Because when I say it was uneven, it was very, very uneven. So I was able to increase to the size I thought would best fit my frame, as well as fix some of the spaces or sections where I had cut a little bit higher in a garment and a little bit lower. As you can see, where I broke for sleeves was perfect. It still gives me that underarm space, but not too much where it's like right in my pit, but not too much where it looks like a little bat, because that's not what the pattern calls for. And I definitely have a lot of space here. Even when I lift my arms, and this is unblocked, I want to emphasize that. So when I lift my arms, I still have plenty of coverage on my sides, even with the unblocked. So that makes me really happy. So continuing on, once I was able to stitch this back together, I decided just to keep going and just finish the sleeve, because that's essentially all I had left. I had the 2 sleeves finished. And so I finished the sleeve first, and I love the length of this particular sleeve, and I wanted to replicate that. And so I did that on this one. But there was one instance where I wasn't paying as close attention. And so I unfortunately did fewer decreases on this sleeve, and it's slightly longer than the other. Not by much, but they're definitely, I feel like this is probably like 2 rows shorter than this one. So I would definitely have to do a little bit more blocking on this. And I can honestly say I prefer this sleeve. I really think that it was a clean decrease, and I also think the length is perfect. And I did the stitch markers to indicate each instance I did a decrease. But I can honestly say, when I was in the beginning part of picking up sleeves and knitting across, I wasn't paying as much attention. I was just, you get in the zone, and I was like, oh no, I was supposed to decrease. And I'm like, it's okay, I'll figure it out later on. And I did my decrease a little bit late. So that's the reason why this sleeve is a little bit longer. Plus, I think I missed one of the decreases as well. I don't think I decrease as in the same frequency as this one, because this one is a perfect fit. It's perfect for my forearms, and I just love it. And so much in fact that I really wish I took better notes, so I know how many stitches I actually picked up for the right sleeve and how many stitches I ended up doing as a decrease, because I definitely do my sleeves. I always modify my patterns to fit my frame, because my arms are so much longer than what the pattern or the designer, I should say, calls for. So I like it. I like it. It worked out. So the color work is super easy. It is definitely something that you can definitely gravitate towards, and you're like, okay, I know what to do and how to do it. But here is some of my advice. Number 1, pay attention to your stitch count. So if a pattern calls for 130 stitches, count your stitches and make sure you have 130 stitches after that round. And if you don't, be willing to tink back, because if you don't, you're going to have this misshaping here. And so I don't know if you notice, on this side of my sleeve, I have a little bit more yarn up here, because again, when I did my butchering, because I can't call it a surgery, it was more like a butchering, I had cut off more of the fabric on this arm than I did on the other one. And so I needed to make up for that. So I had to add a bit more stitches to this. And so it's a little bit more poofy on this side. So I'm going to have to be really creative when I'm doing my blocking with that. So that is why I highly recommend, when you're doing a color work circular yoke, make sure that if the pattern is telling you that you have 130 stitches, that you actually have a number 130 stitches, that you're increasing at the rate where the designer is recommending, especially if you're hoping to replicate what it is that they were able to put together. The second piece of advice I wanted to give for this particular pattern, even though it's unsolicited, make sure you know the size that you want to knit. I had started this pattern in January and I finished it in November. So as you can see, or here, it is taking me a significant amount of time. And I forgot what size I was doing. I couldn't remember if I was doing a size 4 or size 5. My weight fluctuates. There are instances where I'm an extra large and other instances where I'm a medium, and then sometimes I'm a large. And so for me, I prefer to do a size 4. So that way, if my weight fluctuates to a size medium, I'm okay. If my weight fluctuates to a size extra large, it's fine, where it still fits the way I want it to. So with that said, I forgot. And I recognize that I did take an extended period of time from this pattern, which contributed to it, which brings me to my third unsolicited advice. Take notes. Take notes about what it is that you are writing down or what it is that you're doing for a pattern. So that way, if you should take a break, you know what to do. If you know you are going to take a break from a pattern, especially if it's a pattern where you're undecided about whether or not you're going to go back and work on it again, just write down everything where you're at. Write down why you're deciding to take a break. Also include what size you're doing, what needles you're doing, what observations you have about the pattern, what stitch count that you're at, and what row or round that you're on as well. So that way, if you decide to pick the pattern back up, you know exactly what to do and how to do it. Now, keep in mind, I do recognize that it can be a bit emotional. Our knits are emotional. Our crochet is emotional. Our any other crafting is emotional because this is a reflection of us. It's a part of our art. This is art. And sometimes your art is going to come out magnificent. And there are other times where you're just like, maybe I should try that again. I get it. I totally get that. However, if it's something that you're invested in and you want to see successful, the best thing to do is just take as high quality notes as possible to ensure that if you do decide to move back with the project, you know what it is that you were thinking about and why you were thinking that as well. So all in all, this pattern is excellent for those individuals who are seeking to try out color work and if they are familiar with the construction of a garment. This pattern is also excellent for those who just want to dabble a little bit into color work and that is it. And so it's not all over, as you can see, and I'm going to put in some pictures and you can go on my Ravelry and see it as well. You can see that with the color work, it's only at the yoke. And once you get the yoke done, you're done. You can move into the rest of the body. You can do straight up stockinette and you can have a mindless knitting experience without worrying too much about it. But you do need to pay attention to the sleeves, which is why the yoke is so important. Because if you break for the sleeves too early, you're going to have a high armpit situation. And if you break for the sleeves too low, you're going to have a bat wing situation. Now, for some people, they like that particular look. So go towards the look that you are really leaning towards. For me, this is perfect. I don't know if I'm going to be able to replicate that again when I'm doing another circular yoke pattern, but I can honestly say the amount of space between my armpit and my body is perfect. And I'm hopeful that if it looks this good before blocking it, I hope it stays that way when I do block it. So make sure that you're trying on your pattern. That is my final thing to say about this particular pattern. It's well written. It's perfect for those who are dabbling into color work. And finally, it is something that works up extremely fast. Had I not made the mistakes in the beginning of my yoke, this is something that would have finished in January of 2025 and not November. Make sure, I know I just said that. That's my last piece of advice. Here's another tip. And it's something I've been thinking about so much, in fact, that I'm going to be filming a little mini series about this because I have no updates to give you about my patterns. All my patterns are a work in progress. So I don't want to bore you with keep talking about the same project over and over again because you may not be interested in. So I will be doing like a little mini series of, again, giving you unsolicited information. But anywho, one thing I am excited about with this particular pattern is that it taught me a lot about myself as a knitter. Number one, perseverance is something that is a part of knitting. Two, this pattern also taught me the importance of taking diligent notes. And three, this pattern also taught me a lot about using the appropriate weight yarn. I have a very bad habit of saying like, oh yeah, that fingering weight will work perfectly for that worsted weight pattern, when in fact, it doesn't always fit well. Doing a gauge swatch will give you some indication about the fit of it. But if you are starting a pattern and you start to work it up and you recognize that it's not quite making the fabric that you have envisioned, as well as that something that's going to match with the pattern, why keep going? I should have stopped. When I recognized that the circular yoke was not quite meeting the expectation that I needed it to based on what the pattern design had called for, I should have stopped, because had I stopped, I would have a better yoke, not only to feature the beautiful yarn that I'm using, but also that it will fit my body the way it's supposed to. So some of you might be wondering, well, what are you going to do with this awkwardly fitting sweater? So as you can see, I have to pull the sleeves like this. And again, this isn't blocked yet. So I know that once I block, it's going to look completely different. And so one of the things I would say about this particular pattern, that what I'm going to do with it, I should say, is most likely I'm going to give it away to my little cousin. She just recently turned 18. She's graduated from high school this year. I can't believe it. My niece is graduated from high school this year. She also turned 18 this month too. So I had two very special people in my life who are turning 18. And so one got a gift card, and the other one, she loves my knitted garment. So I'm like, why don't I send that to her and whatnot? But this isn't quite the color that she does, but I think it might fit her frame. She has really long arms like I do. She's shaped like I was when I was in high school. I'm like, oh my God, this would be perfect for her. So when I tried it on, I was like, oh my gosh, this will look so much better on Trinity than it does on me. Just like when I made the sweater 19 or 20, it's an all over, what is that, honeycomb? It's almost like a honeycomb cable stitch, or no, it's a honeycomb. It's not honeycomb, it's eyelet, the all over eyelet stitch by my favorite knitwear. It has a funnel neck, and increases are beautiful in order to create this raglan shape. And then the rest of the sweater is all eyelet, the shoulders, the sleeves, the body, the whole thing eyelet. And I ended up giving it to my niece because when I tried it on myself and was like, this looks nice to me, but this will look nicer on her. It was perfect. It looks so great on her. So anywho, very excited to send this to my little cousin. I hope she likes it. So I'm going to wet block it. I'm going to sew in my ends, make sure that it's all the way it's supposed to be. And I'm going to carefully and intentionally send it to her, and I'm going to give her a little like a little card to indicate how to care for it, because the previous garments and other items I have shared with her, they've all been superwash or acrylic, where she didn't have to worry about the washing experience. But with the 100% wool, she definitely wants to be mindful of that. And I think she's at an age, she's very responsible, so I trust her. So I'm going to send this to her, and hopefully she will like it. And if not, she can donate it to someone else, and maybe they can use the yarn for it. I'm all set with this sweater. For me, in the end, it had been it was about the process rather than the wear. I thought this was something that was going to be added to my wardrobe. I love this color green, and I see myself buying it more in the future, or dyeing my own color. But for now, it can go to someone else and make hopefully a beautiful addition to their wardrobe. So just to recap, number one, this is a pattern by Andrea Mowry called the Throwover that was published in March in 2020, and the price is $9. This pattern calls for 4 different yarns, a main color, and 3 different contrasting colors. You are using the contrasted color only in the upper yoke, and the rest of the body is expected to be stockinette. Obviously, you can add a little something to the pattern yourself in order to give it that little zhuzh. This pattern is also very beginner friendly, as it is clear about what the chart is asking of you. You have 2 charts. Chart A is this space up here right underneath my neck and right here. And chart B is this middle section here. There is a large gap between chart B and chart A again, only because I needed to do some sweater surgery. But other than that, there's usually a smaller spacing between the two. So that is it to share with you about this. Thank you so much for tuning in to this quick little pattern review. I hope that those of you who are off this next couple of days in North America, specifically the United States, that you're enjoying your time off. And I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.